Alright, so here's my turn to take a little video of what we did and how long this thing takes. Alright, so the accessory mode's on. Turn this on now. And this is, something, the logo you download, the effect is something that is a pre-program option that you can set in one of the user settings. So yeah, if you slam this in the reverse right away, yep, it works. And here we are. Okay. And if you have your radio on, when you power it off, it's going to come right back on. But if we come out to the home page, normally on the right hand side by default on the home page you'd get the weather channel logo, which I actually would like to get rid of. I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet, because unlike some of the other ones, it's kind of anchored. If you hold it and drag it, it doesn't move. But this shows you how the front and rear cameras will work. And actually the whole reason why I got this was really because I wanted front camera and rear camera. And the head unit was just a byproduct of it. The more I researched, the more I realized I didn't want, Pioneer or Kenwood. It's too limiting. So hopefully you can see these. This little guy right down here is the one that's labeled AVIN. And that's hooked up to the front camera. And just by pressing it, voila, you get the front camera. And those are, I just finished this up, so the tools are still out in front. And you go to the rear, put it in rear camera pops right up, take it out of reverse, and the front camera's there. So that's really all I needed out of this whole project, and it works perfectly. No extra switches or any of that nonsense. It's all in the software. I'm not doing any other kind of AV recording. Don't have a dash cam, so I don't even know if what I did would affect how that would work, but probably. But I wanted the front camera, so that's what we got. And yeah, as you can see in other videos, as long as it's not the rear camera, you can override the front and go on and do anything. One of the big pluses is, of course, things like Waze, which is, I just made a trip from Denver to where I live here in the Philly area, Philadelphia suburbs of Wallingford, and Waze was, awesome. There were actually people in the middle of the night. I mean, we drove like 2 12-hour days to get to make the trip, and in the middle of the night with big rainstorms, people were on the shoulders. Well, they were parked. One person was actually parked on a bridge. Had apparently broken down on a bridge on the left-hand side, where there was like about 2 feet of a shoulder before you hit the wall, and literally, cars are flying, and this car is stopped there on the bridge. And Waze, showed you that this thing was there, and it was hard to believe that somebody would stop on the left-hand side, but sure enough, when I got there, boom, there it was. And I mean, that was really dangerous. So this is the kind of thing I wanted. So naturally, when you're making a video, this thing goes and does its own thing. Well, it worked great on the bench. When I say Waze, I mean I wasn't driving this car. Actually, I was driving a rental truck filled with stuff, and so I was using it off my phone, and I wanted to be able to use that as well in this car. As long as I was going to do something like this, I was going to, do it right, as they say. So there's Waze. Not sure why it's doing that. Oh, here we go. Just had to hit the very bottom. So hopefully it's a one and done thing, because all the previous times I never had to do that when I was testing it, and you don't have to do that on your phone either. So, all right. So anyway, Waze works, and I actually jailbroke my phone, and I have it set to be a hotspot. So I'll be able to use Google Maps and stuff like that as we're on the road. So you got things like Waze, and you see it's setting up. I haven't turned any of this stuff on since I put it in the car. It all worked fine on the bench, and so a lot of this stuff is set up. Go ahead and shut that down. We don't have to watch that. So you get the idea, though. You can download, all the, anything you get out of the Google Play Store. It's just like if you have an Android phone, go there and get whatever you want. I don't have the OBD2 wireless Bluetooth installed on the car itself, but this is one of the other cool things that I saw when I was researching that you couldn't necessarily get on the Pioneer, Kenwood type stuff. So it's not perfect, sure, but it's good enough. See, this is what I mean by the weather. So the radio is now off, and you're stuck with the weather. In the setups, I never did find a way to get rid of it. The module, not the O2 C2 or whatever it is, not the cheaper one, but the bigger pack module actually is seamless with the steering wheel controls. No cutting and splicing wires and taking a guess about what works or not. I mean, all that stuff works fantastic. Pretty darn simple to sorry, wrong button. Pretty darn simple to to set up. Steering wheel keys, there they are. I had the Bose CD changer, and turns out this guy here is tied to this function there. So you can actually make this do something different than these buttons. Small price to pay, but no biggie. I was kind of hoping that I could make this do like the phone call pickup, so if someone's calling, I could just press that, and it works great. But turns out it didn't work great. I forgot it like switched modes on the radio or something like that. Well, it didn't do as expected. The other thing is you get all these extra cables. Well, it turns out the two USBs and the iPod. So I've got them routed out the side and in there, and luckily it fits and doesn't cause any issue with the door closed or anything like that. Not sure when I'll ever use them, but it was nice to go ahead and not and keep them on without leaving them off. The GPS receiver is behind the vent here, this left vent up on the top. It is kind of tricky to get all those wires with the cables that are remaining. Get all the pack wires with the stock car wires. Once they're all put together, plus the heating, air conditioning wires behind this unit down here, to get everything in there takes really kind of four hands. So me and another person over multiple times, we're trying to find places to put them. In the back of this head unit, there is a plastic seat where, in the Bose radio, there's a pin that goes in this seat to help support it in the back. You'll have to take a Dremel tool or something and cut that off. It'll actually prevent this from sliding in, the last 2 or 3 or 4 millimeters. So that little plastic thing has got to go. You don't use it for this. I bought 3 different kits only one of the three actually works. And by work, I mean, like, you'll have to trim this opening up on all three, but only the one, this final one here, actually, once you do that, will actually still allow you to mount the side pieces on, that you'll then screw into the side of this head unit, and without breaking them, because the other two were definitely slightly thinner, slightly narrower fit, and would not, in the end, allow everything to go together. This one, I had my doubts too, because it didn't seem like it wanted to, but with some gentle persuasion, it managed to fit on. I'll show you which version that is. The way I got the front camera in was drilling the hole, not going through the door accordion type rubber cover, was actually drilling a hole right through, similar to what other people did, but instead of a hole that goes out through the side at an angle behind the battery, mine went straight out. There's a flat spot that's even bigger. In my case, it was easier to get to. A very, very simple, straightforward procedure, drilled straight out, with a person in the front of the car, making sure that you had a little protective piece behind the battery where the cables are underneath, so I didn't drill through them. And I'll show you how the cameras all went together. So the rear runs here. It's routed actually around the side of the car, behind that behind the rug, and there's plastic trim all along the side of the driver's seat. It comes down, and right down in the corner, where that plastic is, in front of the door, like where the hood switch is, that wire is routed all underneath there, and then comes up behind the dash. And the wires from the front camera come up through there. There's a hole. You'll see it when you get there. This is a C6 Corvette. There's a hole in the front that is plenty big enough to feed those through, and they come up in here. And when this battery's removed, there's a perfect spot behind there to drill the hole that goes right through under that passenger side. And that part works like a champ. Here's where the front camera's mounted. Hopefully you can see that. Some tie wraps for now in the front. Hold the wire in place. And it goes right up in this little groove up underneath there. Probably can't see it. If I wanted to make a better video, I'd get my Sony cameras out. This is just a cell phone. One thing is, thank God I had this angle drill with a super small bit, because where this is, fat chance, there's no angle here to come up from underneath, really. So that was the only way to do it. For me, that was my solution. Yep. So it was, I don't know, on a scale of 0 to 10, it was actually harder than I thought, because I didn't want to screw up the fiberglass. Didn't want to screw, and I've been, want to go drilling holes in places, and otherwise, muck up the, those Bose systems. If you screw up the speakers, if you do something dumb with the just with the Bose amplifier and all that, it would have turned a medium project into a real pain in the ass project. So I would say, for me, for a first timer, this is probably more, instead of like a 5 out of 10, I would say it's more like a 7 out of 10. And part of it was this, that center console part did not come out as easy as some of the ones on the video. It was, and that snap, crackle, pop, and those things come out, if you don't do this for a living, it just doesn't sound good at all. That's kind of intimidating. So, but nothing broke. It just sounds like it's breaking sometimes. and it works. I did kill the battery. I think it was the original battery in the car, and so started the car a couple times during the middle of the project to keep it up and running, but turns out after I put the battery back in, to drill the hole, put the battery back in, put it all together, that was it. So, and hopefully I got it on the charger because it's brand new, and I have been testing the system out some more, and I really hope if there, I really hope there isn't something that's constantly draining the battery as a result of what we put on with the pack mod. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. It doesn't make any sense since everything seems to be tied off to the accessory as far as the head unit goes. And the front and rear battery, the front and rear cameras are also getting their power from the same bundle sources in the back, so the head unit. So doesn't seem logical that for some reason something now would be draining the battery, but we'll see. Yep, it was a project. Took me a couple weeks because research, and ended up going with one module, realizing it wasn't the right one, and got the other one. The one that I didn't like was this guy right here. The OS-2X. I don't recommend that one. I recommend you get the one, I think that the original poster used. And also, this is the only dash kit that worked. The rest of them did not work. That's the one I recommend. And oh, by the way, replace your air filter if you haven't in a while in your neighborhood. I tried a couple, and it turns out this is the only one that actually has the sides that are pliable enough to stay in that track. If you've never replaced your cabin air filter, you should. If you've had it for a couple years at least. I mean, at the most, I would replace it. Even more if you lived in an area that goes through a lot of pollen. And you realize that there's it's not a straight or flat shot, it's actually a curved track. And for some reason, the aftermarket ones, even though they'll say they're compatible, they're not. The sides are firm, they won't bend and stay in the track. This one does. So, that was the project. Good luck on your own. Give me a call, email me if you have any questions.